Yeah, we're on. Good, very good. Hello, everybody. My name is Keith O'Callaghan. I look after structuring and asset management at Archax. I think I don't need to explain Archax too much, but over to you, Angus.
Angus O'Callaghan, I'm head of trading and markets at XDC Network. Before you ask the question, we are not related. Just to clarify.
Worst boy band ever, So, but it's been a great conference today. Everything's really been, I would say, focused from an institutional viewpoint downwards. So I think it might be interesting for people to hear it from a kind of a layer one's perspective, from a technology perspective, and obviously we publicly announced that. That we guys were going to be working together, Archax and XDC, but you've got SBI, you've got Deutsche Telekom, you've got a number of these quite substantial partnerships. What's the vision? Why XDC, I think is the question.
Yeah, absolutely. So XDC came into Genesis in 2017, about the same time that I actually entered blockchain, so we're about the same age from that perspective. So it's an EVM-compatible enterprise-grade chain. It's fast, secure, reliable. And from that perspective, if we put that into numbers, over 2,000 transactions per second with a 6-second finality. So what are the use cases for XDC as much as anything? It is trade finance, it is real-world asset tokenization, and payments and remittances. That's the sort of 3 pillars that we focus on as XDC, the network, because it was originally built as a trade finance platform, but as the markets evolved into real-world asset tokenization and payments, we have the technology that's been absolutely perfectly built for that.
So, in Archax, we do a lot of kind of funky, interesting things, but a lot of the stuff I do is essentially very boring. It's kind of essentially creating a pipe, putting securities, putting assets through that. And then obviously we've tokenized some assets onto your network, but I view really, on one side we've all these institutionals saying we're going into this area, but I think it's also incumbent on layer ones, layer twos, that ecosystem to take the assets that we're providing and putting them to use, for TVL, like TVL and so on, without transaction has a function but isn't the killer function, So how do you expect to without going into the detail of every asset that we're dealing with, how do you feel that XDC can take the assets that someone like Archax and others will provide into your network, and how will it help the community and the clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very proud of our partnership, and it was actually announced today. So you're hearing it here first. XDC did actually invest in money market funds through Archax, and that's on BlackRock, Fidelity, State Street, and Aberdeen. So very much putting our money where our mouth is. And we're encouraging our other great clients to utilize this platform to access money market funds. So we've got a large network which we are leveraging in partnership with Archax in order to get these funds on chain, on the XDC network.
Yeah, from our perspective, as I said, we have an infrastructure nature to us, and we work with a number of protocols and the like. But I think probably from an institution's point of view, it's a topic that's been dealt with internally in Archax ourselves, but it's this concept of the public versus private blockchain. Conceptually, both will always exist, but you guys are obviously a public blockchain. Is there some considerations that an institution needs to take when utilizing any public blockchain, and particularly XDC, versus choosing a private solution?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, XDC is actually a hybrid solution.
Okay.
So we have a layer one, which is public and accessible and visible to anyone that wants to go and have a look at the XDC Explorer. But underneath that, with our latest XDC 2.0, we now have the concept of subnets. So that basically allows people to execute on the XDC network, but in a private manner. So the self-sovereignty of their data is maintained. So that's particularly useful for some trade finance applications and supply chain management, where people might not want to let the wider world know what transactions they're actually doing. So we've solved for both those solutions.
Okay, very good. And And then obviously Archax and nearly everybody here comes from either a TradFi background in a regulated sense. So why was it important maybe to go with regulated partners versus, I would say more flexible, crypto-based businesses that didn't necessarily have the tradition or the understanding of regulation?
Yeah, absolutely. From our perspective, I see regulation as the future. And that's why we have partnered with excellent partners like Archax in the UK and Europe. We've partnered with Securitize in the US, InvestorX out of Singapore, our joint venture with SBI Holdings in Japan. So the key message from these partnerships is that they are highly regulated entities. And that's absolutely key to our partnerships because we think it's the future. And if you're not regulated, then I think the regulators will catch up eventually. So future-proofing it.
Yeah, so from our perspective, we view the tokenization journey should be a cheap solution, so, kind of selecting, like we've quite a broad range of protocols that we can enact with, but in terms of, let's say, the trade, like you've got a kind of trade financy type pivot that you guys particularly do. Is there something kind of that you can maybe expand on that a bit or unpack?
Yeah, absolutely. So the XDC network is very decentralized from that perspective. So we do have, I'll revert back again to the SBI Holdings joint venture, where we've moved beyond the proof of concept stage. We're actually doing live transactions. And I think the whole market itself is now a little bit tired of proof of concepts. They want to actually see real transactions. So I've been in blockchain for about 8 years and worked on a lot of proof of concepts, but now being actively involved in real transactions is a game changer. And that's just on the trade finance perspective. We also have a large team globally who are looking at payments, cross-border remittance specifically, and tokenization of money market funds, stable coins, especially regulated stable coins. So we have a partnership with Circle. So Circle will soon be active and live on the XDC network as well. And again, Circle being a regulated stablecoin is very keen to us. So again, harping back to regulation.
Yeah. So we had a chat with someone from a significant family office who wasn't in the space, and like drove very hard the discussion is why tokenize, and we came back with the kind of liquidity, accessibility, the cost of execution, compliance, all of these things, and I think we kind of got that across, but if in terms of XCC, do you have any particular strengths, that would pivot, especially in terms of compliance, which is an area that we're heavy into, is there a way, I think you kind of half explained it, but maybe if focus on the kind of compliance and regulatory aspect of delivering, tokens and settlement, in that environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the working with the regulated partners is absolutely key. The way that XDC has been built, it's highly secure, so that when tokens are transferred, maybe if we go into a little bit of technicality, the consensus mechanism around XDC is what's called delegated proof of stake. So we have 108 master nodes, as they're called, and they validate the transactions. We have about another 150 standby nodes. Should anything happen to one of the master nodes, they get replaced very easily. And when we say those master nodes, they are also highly regulated entities. Deutsche Telekom, for example, is one of the host master nodes on the XDC network. So their transactions can be trusted, and it's very hard to, almost impossible, to override the system, given the regulated entities, and there's no incentive to do it from that perspective.
Okay. Then in terms of the, like something that we monitor ourselves, because we're using, we use public chains, and we're looking at the health of those public chains in terms of, sustainability against attack, but also in terms of the growth and the development of that network, so we're not only just looking at the blockchain sustainability itself, but we're actually looking at the token price and just understanding where is that going, volatility, directionality, will it grow up? Will it grow the community? Because in the end, incentivization has to be driving things. So, like, what are you guys doing on that leg of XDC to make things run?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Keith. So XTC is an interesting network because compared to the other layer ones that are out there, we've never actually taken any VC money. So it's been organically grown. And just before I got on stage, I just had to double check, but our fully diluted market cap's just over $3 billion. And that's been organic. But, where does that come from, Keith? There's multiple moving parts to the XDC price itself. One is being listed on the right exchanges. So we're listed on almost 50 exchanges globally, and the tier one exchanges at that. But being listed on the exchange is just part one. Making sure there is that liquidity on the exchanges. So those exchanges have a fair and orderly market. We work with the largest market makers in the world. So that includes GSR, Cumberland, Wintermute, and B2C2, three of which are in the room here today.
Okay, very good. So just in terms of asset classes, and this is kind of more of a future view, so obviously in the short term, just from Archak's experience, it's been money market funds, commodities, like we did the uranium thing, we'll do others, and then obviously we're trying to build a business in stablecoin, so we've got one announced and a few more in the pipe. So from my perspective, that's been our lived experience, I then think in medium term, I would say things like fund units, anything to do with it is the settlement, so it's, I think tokenization is perfect for that. I think, voluntary carbon, these type of asset classes. And then from my own hedge fund experience, the CDS market, RMBS market, all of these they're well-run markets, but in terms of price discovery, it creates problems that are sometimes hidden and tensions build in economies, So have you mapped out the kind of asset classes that you want to go after, or are you just kind of saying, okay, let's just get money market funds, maybe commodities and stables done the now? But do you have is there anything in the pipe that you would be looking to attack at some point?
Yeah, I mean, we are asset class agnostic from that perspective. We, in theory, as long as it's a token, it can be moved on the XDC network. It's really down to the issuers as much as anything, because we ourselves are not an issuer. We're a technology provider. But from my personal outlook, I think credit is going to be a very interesting market coming up. People always talk about the tokenization of real estate, but the actual real estate itself, I don't think it's going to be that easy to tokenize. Trust me, I've tried to do it myself at the largest property developer in the world, and it's very difficult. It's an uphill battle. But the credit and the debt around that real estate, that's where it's actually quite interesting. So mezzanine debt, the actual underlying loans themselves, that could be really quite interesting because, again, they are just financial instruments, much easier to tokenize than bricks and mortar. So I think that's where the market's going to move over the next couple of years.
And just one or two more brief questions. Just in terms of your guys' view of the world, you've got the US, UK, Europe, Middle East, Singapore, Hong Kong. These are the main areas that are moving. Have you got a focus on all of those markets, or are you prioritizing particular markets?
So we're headquartered out of the UAE. So we've got a large team there, but our team's significant enough that we can operate in all the jurisdictions that we see demand. So whether that's, we've got a great team in Australia, we're doing great stuff in Brazil and South America, in Canada, in the US. We're just building out our team in the US properly at the moment. And so we've got a fantastic team there as well. And then in the Middle East, obviously we're very close to the teams there. And XDC itself actually started in Singapore. So we've got a fantastic team there. And we're very close with the regulators and work hand in hand with them. So we're happy to work with regulators, issuers, regulated institutions on a global basis. So anywhere from Brazil to Japan, Australia, we're game everywhere.
Okay, good. I'm just mindful that we're running a bit late and food is ready. But overall, I can take it that you're positive about the direction RWA tokenization is going. maybe a problem with speed, but overall you believe, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to do it since 2018, right? But to actually start seeing it coming to fruition, and I think there's no doubt that tokenization of all assets will happen eventually. But yeah, there's momentum now. Again, as you say, it's running a little bit slower than I think most people in the industry would like, but it's definitely happening. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, no, I think just the evidence of the names that were up here, well, not our names, but the names that were here prior, just gives me a huge amount of confidence. As you say, there's a momentum starting to build. So I think if anyone has any questions, we can go and get something to eat, maybe. So thank you.
Yes.
Yes.